done without you. Do you love me? Do you still love me? I just wanted to touch you. You really, after all the you just said? I just wanted to give you all this. Yes, me up, yes, please stop. Please stop. Please, I just wanted to hug you and say bye. I didn't want to take you back. You everything I did. I did everything I did to make you happy. It wasn't. You don't want to be happy. I wanted you. I did. I wanted you. But you don't love me.
Borderline personality disorder has found itself under the spotlight and under the microscope due to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. This has caused many people to overgeneralize BPD symptoms as well as to use ad hominem attacks against individuals and against Amber Heard herself, saying that people with borderline personality disorder are crazy or toxic or manipulative, etc. And I think it's important that we use person first language and that we also understand the causes of this condition. And contrary to popular belief, borderline is treatable. Individuals are able to obtain help to control their symptoms to the point where they no longer meet the criteria for having BPD. Individuals with borderline personality disorder have trouble regulating their emotions because they feel their emotions so much more intensely. It would be, I've seen some examples of it's like walking around without skin. So the emotions would be so raw and so sensitive. They're extremely sensitive to rejection and abandonment. A key symptom of borderline personality disorder is making frantic and desperate efforts to avoid that abandonment or rejection. Just the feeling of it. It's real or imagined rejection. Because of that inability to tolerate distress, the relationships in which BPD is at play, they feel like hot and cold, very intense relationships. Some people describe as a roller coaster ride, walking on eggshells, that push and pull dynamic, the idealizing and devaluation. So that you're the best thing that ever happened to me to I hate you, I can't stand you. From what we know about BPD in the literature is that it's developed due to, there could be some genetic factor influence and primarily negative environmental influences. So different types of childhood trauma, being abandoned by one or both parents, having another parent with severe mental illness, or drug use. That's just some examples. Those things can come into play with the development of BPD. And really what I like to tell people is it's a trauma response. So it's a reaction to an abnormal environment, like a lot of the other disorders are. It's just a reaction to a negative environment as a child. And so if you have empathy for people that suffer from trauma, then you must know that these personality disorders are definitely born from trauma. In the doctor's note that was presented in trial, that Amber also has a previous history of ADHD. And it is true that there is overlap with some of those symptoms with borderline personality disorder and with ADHD. BPD can be comorbid with other diagnoses such as ADHD. As a matter of fact, these conditions occur at high rates, and of ADHD in patients with BPD is about 30 to 60%. Now, with borderline personality disorder and with ADHD, two of the most common symptoms are that emotional dysregulation and impulsivity. So with individuals with BPD, they have more problems using context clues for inhibiting responses, and their impulsivity is stress dependent, whereas ADHD patients have more motor impulsivity, and that is shown through difficulties with, for example, interrupting ongoing responses, like not looking for like social cues and knowing when to add a response. Typically, BPD was not diagnosed until adulthood, although it can be now diagnosed in adolescence as well. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder where symptoms have to be present before age 12, and ADHD is mostly defined or characterized as a persistent pattern of inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. whereas BPD is mostly characterized by impairment in interpersonal functioning, including poor empathy, problems with trust and intimacy, and difficult personality traits such as disinhibition and antagonism and impulsivity. Those are just some of the nuances there. A clinician would definitely assess symptoms when they first started, how often they occur, the frequency, intensity, when they occur, among just many other questions that will help to conceptualize and determine a diagnosis for a patient. I again want to reiterate the importance of using person-first language. So person-first language means we are not calling the person by a disorder that they have. So typically you'll see, especially with the Amber Heard case, people saying, all BPDs are toxic, see? And it's also an ad hominem attack, attacking the character. And so when we don't use person-first language, we stigmatize individuals with borderline personality disorder. So we want to say an individual with BPD or a person suffering from BPD. And I think a lot of people tend to overgeneralize or stigmatize individuals because they have, a friend or an ex-friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, cousin, mother that behaved in a certain way. And I just want to also remind people that all mental health is on a spectrum. So just because your experience was a certain way, and this is not to dismiss anyone's experience because everyone's experience is valid. And at the same time, we can recognize that our experiences aren't universal truth. So we can't just take what's true for us and then say it must be happening in this case. And that's something I have to remind myself of, even though I'm the off-duty therapist and I'm not at all like operating professionally. I would definitely not have personal opinions if I were acting as a clinician, but just as an observer, it's just important to remember that we all are going to bring in our own lived experience into the case and kind of paint a narrative that way as well. Mental health is really big in our society right now, and BPD is really under the spotlight. So many more people are interested in mental health. You can see that from TikTok to YouTube, other social media channels or outlets, and even celebrities. Selena Gomez just created the Wonder Mind resource. As we have this conversation around mental health and bringing awareness to all forms of mental illness, we have to be mindful of how we're talking and the language that we're using. We're referring to someone's mental health diagnosis, again, using person-first language, not attacking the individual. It's easy to get caught up in the drama of pop culture and celebrity drama, but it's important to remember that these are real people with real feelings. And at the end of the day, none of us were there for that relationship. Although we do have, the right to our opinion and we can speculate and such. I wish Amber Heard peace and healing because the relationship that she was in with Johnny Depp was definitely not healthy. I think we all can agree on that. And the thing about intimate relationships is that they can bring out a lot of vulnerabilities and insecurities. And so we're seeing a lot of the skeletons coming out of the closet with this case. And it's really my hope that both sides, heal and continue to seek treatment. And I hope that they both are consulting with a therapist because this trial can bring out a lot of different emotions and triggers for both of them. So I just really hope they're able to kind of move on or move forward, I should say, in healing from the situation once it's all over. Anyway, if you feel like anyone needs to hear this message about borderline personality disorder, please share, like, and subscribe. I'm going to upload some more videos dealing with PTSD, histrionic personality disorder that also came up, as well as with addiction. So thank you so much. See you on the next one.